Hi, Charles the SirBookSage here with a review of Arthur C. Clarke's classic science fiction novel, Rendezvous with Rama. Now, it's been about 25 years since I last read this book. I first read it, I think, when I was early in junior high school, when I'd first gotten into science fiction. After reading a lot of fantasy, I began to expand out into sci-fi. This would have been a 5-star read for me back then, so I was really curious to come back to it. And I've read it multiple times when I was younger, but again, it's been about 25 years. So I sat down this morning, opened it up on my Kindle, and then read the book straight through. Now, on the Kindle, it's only like 215 pages, so it's not a long novel. One of the things I like about Arthur C. Clarke when it comes to like hard sci-fi, which is what this would be classified as, meaning he establishes a technological construct, technological ceiling for what humans can achieve. And the story is told within that construct. So this is generally a non-spoiler review, but I just want to give you the overall thoughts on the story and the basic construct of it. Again, it's about the 23rd century, and humans have spread beyond Earth. Besides Earth, they live on the Moon, on Mars, on Mercury, and on 3 satellites, moons, in the solar system. I believe it's Ganymede, Titan, and Triton. And there's a group geopolitically called the United Planets, and it has 6 members, an ambassador from each of these 6 places. And there's also a General Assembly. So basically look at the United Nations, where you have the Security Council and you have the General Assembly. And that's now morphed into this United Planets, where you have the 6 members on a kind of Security Council, and then there's the General Assembly, which is a separate thing. In this expanded solar system here, humans have developed a series of satellites and observatory stations called Spaceguard. And its purpose is to look for and discover and catalog every object that's moving inside our solar system. Their ultimate purpose is to discover any potential threat to Earth in terms of asteroids that might impact Earth, and then try to have solutions to intercept those and stop them before Earth can have any kind of cataclysmic destruction. And this system in place in the 23rd century just discovers this object moving into the solar system. And as it's being observed in general by scientists, they begin to realize that this is something different, that it's not a natural object. And they start to realize, okay, this is a manufactured thing, and that we're not alone in the universe. Now, the bulk of the story follows this Commander Norton and his crew. There's lots of different groups of astronauts out on different missions in the solar system performing different tasks. And Norton and his team are the only ones in a craft that's anywhere near where this object is traveling through the solar system. They're the only ones who could plot an intercept course, which is what they're basically tasked with doing. So we follow them. They arrive. They manage to land on the front end of this object, because it's like a big, long, giant sphere that's like spinning as it's moving. So they land on the very flat front. And then they find their way inside and begin exploring throughout this object, this craft. And the book is about that whole exploration. Now, because it's traveling deeper into the solar system on a course that's going to take it near the sun, they assume it's going to boomerang around the sun to pick up acceleration and things like most kind of objects do. And everything in an orbit, goes around the sun. So this crew of the Endeavour, the human ship, they have a tight timeline because they have to keep a certain distance away from the sun. There's, I don't know if it's perigee or something, basically an invisible line in the solar system that if their ship crosses that line, they won't be able to get away from the sun. So they're on a timeline as they explore. And the book is following this crew as they enter the ship and begin to go through the ship. And we also follow the geopolitical scene as well. The ambassadors and scientists discussing, arguing theories, plus just what it's doing from a societal standpoint and how it's impacting the various people in the different places. And that stuff's just kind of we see that only through the eyes of this select group of like the 6 or 7 people, the ambassadors on the United Planets, plus this sort of Rama committee that's consists of them plus all these other scientists that specialize in different areas. But the bulk of the story is told through the eyes of Commander Norton and his crew and everything that they experience as they're journeying deeper and deeper into this gigantic, basically a spacecraft. It's not a like space opera, so there's no like space battles or any of those things. It's not any swashbuckling. It's not a Star Trek, Star Wars, where you have those kinds of things. It's almost very much like an archaeological exploration, but it's in space, and it's humans exploring a alien craft that's vastly beyond their capacity in terms of technology. And what's interesting about it is as the ship comes deeper into the system and gets closer to the sun, the absolute zero that it's existed in for who knows how many millennium begins to like wear off, and it begins to start to warm up from the sun itself. And as this alien craft warms up, things begin like waking up and activating and turning on. So we follow this crew of astronauts as they are just exploring the vessel itself, plus having to deal with the challenges as this sort of vessel begins to come alive in some way. Arthur C. Clarke, to me, is an excellent writer. He doesn't waste words, and not that that's not really an accurate description. He's very sparse and very economical in the way he writes. Like if Frank needs to cross the room, he'll write Frank cross the room and open the door. It's not like Steven Erikson with Malazan or Stephen R. Donaldson with Thomas Covenant Chronicles, where it might take a page or two for Frank to cross the room and open the door. Clarke is very to the point, and he's all about the sort of scientific exploration, discovery, and the philosophical and spiritual underpinnings of what these discoveries might mean. I like all of the characters of Commander Norton's crew. Clarke isn't the type of author that gets like deep into deep characterization, but he's really good at writing, and he gets each individual person across to you. You understand who they are, their motivations, what makes them tick. And he does it, again, with his economical way of writing. He just gets to the point, and he's really good at getting to the heart of what he's trying to say. Each one of these members of the crew, they have their sort of moment to where they step to the forefront of the plot, because it's their particular expertise, their skill set is needed to overcome an obstacle or to try to decipher something they've discovered. Again, I really enjoy it because you have them, they're concentrating on their mission. They're trying to weigh, okay, what are the risks? What lines are we willing to cross, if any, to try to discover as much as we can in our very tight timeline before we have to leave? And that's juxtaposed against the kind of growing geopolitical issues that this alien object is beginning to create in the solar system in general. Overall, it's a story that, to me, just kept me reading, kept me going, kept me interested. There wasn't a moment where I was bored at all. Now, I'm a big fan of hard science fiction. I'm also a big fan of space opera as well. Give me more Vorkosigan, please. Good old-fashioned, hard sci-fi, like Arthur C. Clarke writes, like Ben Bova writes, and others. I just really enjoy that stuff. It's a nice change of pace from epic fantasy and your space opera stuff. And it's nice to come back to it. It's been a while. I recently reread Childhood's End as well, not that long ago, after 25 years. Also, 5-star book. And it held up absolutely after all these years. I'm going to be revisiting more of all these old classics that I grew up with that nobody really talks about anymore. Hardly anybody does. One other thing I will say about Rendezvous with Rama, it has one of my top 5 favorite final sentences in a novel of all time. Now, if you were to pick up the book and just flip to the last page and read the last sentence, you may go, okay, that seems odd to be one of your favorite final sentences, which would make sense, but that final sentence carries the impact of the entire book in it. You need to have read the whole story, every word in the story, and then arrive at that final sentence for that final sentence to deliver the way it does. This, again, I'm just trying to keep this very non-spoiler. I just kind of gave you the overall construct of it. Now, Rendezvous with Rama was originally just a standalone story, but Arthur C. Clarke did revisit it and expand beyond it, and he actually ended up writing 3 sequels to it as well. And I've read Rendezvous with Rama multiple times when I was young, and I've only read books 2, 3, and 4 once and really enjoyed them. I thought it was a fascinating continuation, especially where he took the story as a whole and how he developed it and expanded it into a much larger thing. And I'm really looking forward to continuing this Rama read. So I'm going to look forward to those, and I'm trying to do a book review just to end up with all 4 books in the series, even if it's a non-spoiler, kind of just general talk. I don't know if these non-spoiler reviews really accomplish anything, if they make you interested in it. I'm a big fan of Arthur C. Clarke's writing style, his hard sci-fi style. He likes to tackle this subject of first contact. What happens to humanity when we discover we're no longer alone? And he likes exploring that subject and where it might lead. And he does it in very different ways. Childhood's End is a first contact novel. Rendezvous with Rama is a first contact novel. But they're very different from each other in how their first contact plays out and how it occurs. I'm just going to wrap this up here. Again, Arthur C. Clarke's Rendezvous with Rama, 5-star book, still 5 stars after all these years. It's one of those books where, I want to just close it and then open it back up and read it again. I just enjoy it that much. So give it a shot. If you haven't read any Arthur C. Clarke or just haven't gotten to this one yet, I highly recommend it. I am Charles SirBookSage. Happy reading.